We've got 7 different stories to cover from 7 different outlets, guys. This is Regan's Newsround. Let's dive into it, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are now. This is REGANELITE here with another episode of Newsround. And we start from The Guardian with the headline of more than 1 million children in the UK sleep on the floor or share bed, a study finds. Bernardo says the rise in bed poverty reflects the growing levels of destitution following the soaring food or gas bills. I know it's not nice to talk about these things, but it's also important to remind ourselves the struggles that ordinary people are having to go through each and every single day in the UK. So let's dive into it. More than 1 million children in the UK either sleep on the floor or share a bed with parents or siblings because their family cannot afford the luxury of replacing broken frames and mouldering lining, according to the children's charity Bernardo's. The charity said the increasing bed poverty reflects the growing levels of destitution in which low-income families already struggling with soaring food or gas bills often find they are unable to afford a comfortable night's sleep. Acute hardship was forcing families to adopt desperately improvised sleeping arrangements. It said in a report published on Friday an estimated 700,000 children were sharing beds, while 44,000 children slept on the floor, leaving them tired, anxious and finding it hard to concentrate at school. A good night's sleep is vital for anyone, never mind just children, and not being able to have a proper good night's sleep or anything like that is going to have a detriment on the children's education. We've spoken about how important it is to make sure that children are fed well. Sleep is just as important, and if they're not getting it as well as they should be, it will affect their education again. Parents and kids were often forced to share a bed. The Bernardo's research found some parents would often sleep on sofas or chairs to vacate their beds for their children. Other children would spend the night on mattresses or blankets on the floor, sometimes without sheets or duvet. Some of the most vile findings include a 3-year-old having to sleep in a baby's cot, a 17-year-old sleeping in a 7-year-old's bed, and a parent sleeping on a child's single mattress. Many families saw replacing broken beds as unaffordable luxuries, with soaring energy bills and even regularly washing bedding was hard. More than 336,000 families could not afford to replace or repair beds in the last year, Bernardo's estimate. More than 204,000 families said their children's beds or bedding was mouldy or damp because putting the heating on was too expensive, and more than 187,000 said they couldn't afford to wash or dry bedding. People take it for granted everyone has a bed, mum of 2 Shelley Nicholson told The Guardian. Last winter, she slept on the sofa with her unheated front room. Her daughter shared a double mattress on the bare concrete floor next to her. For many people living in poverty like her, having a bed felt like a privilege. Nicholson, a part-time charity worker with her daughters living in a housing association property affected by damp and mould just outside Carlisle, Cumbria. 2 of their beds were broken, but she said she couldn't afford to heat the bedrooms anyways. So last December they slept in the living room every night for 3 months. Wow, 3 months, guys. That's for some people it's much longer. She tried making the best of it. I thought if we put some fairy lights in the fireplace we could trick our heads into thinking the fire was on and the room was warm. We had candles and we all asked for a big snuggly hoodies for Christmas. We just tried to make it as cosy as we could. There was no hiding the cold or the discomfort, and it does hurt you back being on the mattress on the floor, said her daughter Ash, 16, who was revising for her GCSE mock exams at the time. You have little or no sleep, you are cold, and you get to the point where you've just had enough. Shelley, who is on universal credit, loses around a fifth of her £1,000 a month post-rent income through benefit deductions and, of all things, the bedroom tax. Yeah, bedroom tax, guys. Sorry, I'm just going to adjust my volume just in case it's a bit low. Yeah, how's that bedroom tax? She said replacing her most essential furniture or appliances was unaffordable for her. It's not just beds, it's the whole spectrum of everything. It costs at least £200 to buy a basic new single bed with beddings, and £240 for a double. Bernardo's provided Shelley and Ash with new beds this year, one of more than 400 families the charity says has helped its way over the past 12 months. Come winter, Shelley expects to move the beds downstairs. She said she can't afford to heat the upstairs rooms. Bernardo said up to 70% of poverty support grants administrated by its local staff can go on providing beds and beddings for families in poverty. Increasing bed poverty was confirmed by hardship charity Buttle UK, which said it gave out 400,000 in bed grants last year, up 7% in the past 12 months. Various social security benefits levels and policies such as two-child benefit limits are fueling the hardship that creates bed poverty, says Bernardo's. He also wants the government to invest properly in England's Fair Bed Council running crisis support schemes, which have been savaged by austerity cuts in recent years. The government spokesperson said, "We know people are struggling with rising prices, which is why we're providing record financial support worth around £330,000 per household and driving down inflation to make everyone's money go further. On top of this, we are supporting families with food, clothing and other essential costs. Clothes like bed through the household support fund and have raised benefits and pensions over by 10%. This is once again, guys, a case of the government passing the buck on to charities and letting them deal with it, rather than dealing with their duties as a government to uphold and protect all societies. And they are looking out for the needs of the few and not the needs of the many. We've talked about this many times, guys, and I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if I end up talking about it again. But again, charity stepping in when it's supposed to be the government doing it, guys. And I truly appreciate charities stepping in and supporting as many families as they can, and we are extremely grateful for them for doing that. But at the end of the day, they should not have to do that, and that's the point that I want to make. It is the government who is supposed to be looking after its people, and instead it is abandoning their people. And they're saying, and you hear this all the time from spokespersons saying they've invested this amount, record profits and record financial support and this kind of stuff. We don't hear it making a difference. We don't hear enough of it making a difference to people's lives, and I think that's really important to stress. My heart goes out to this family and anyone who's struggling right now to make ends meet, to get a good night's sleep, and I do feel for them, and I hope you guys do too. So from one crisis to potentially another one coming, guys. This is an exclusive from iNews. This is Sunak's free childcare offer could close thousands of nurseries. Plans to give 30-hour free childcare to every under 5 is designed to offer families a lifeline. But new reports find there won't be enough staff, as nurseries say will force them out of business. Now this one's a little bit more personal because I actually have one or two family members who work in private nurseries. Next year should see free childcare made available to many more parents, as promised from Rishi Sunak's government starts being phased in. By September 2025, all children under 5 are supposed to be entitled to free 30 hours care a week in what should be a welcome relief for families struggling with high fees and the cost of living. But new research seen exclusively by the eye suggests the policy will actually backfire and make the situation much worse by triggering 1,000 more nursery closures across the country. A study by UK innovation agency NESA, being launched at the Conservative Party conference, concludes that the government has made a grave miscalculation and cannot deliver on its promise. Rather than boosting funded children's places, its policy is predicted to cut the number of subsidised nursery spots available to parents. The sector is already bad in a way. The latest figures from Ofsted show that more than 650 nurseries closed in England in a single year. Staff shortages are big part of the problem. NESA says the research shows there are not enough trained earlier staff to meet the demand from the extension for free childcare. So just before going further, so this is my big gripe with this. So it seems good obviously for the parents, especially when they're struggling to make ends meet, so they've got somewhere they can put their child while they work full time, and I totally understand from that point of view. But the problem is that the nurseries are not getting anything out of this, really. They don't benefit anything out of this. and it means that they have to stump up. It costs money for nurseries to look after children, yeah, and if anyone has any brain whatsoever, it costs food, you have to look after them, clothing, nappies, toys, the maintenance of the buildings that they're being in as well. There's a lots of costs that comes to looking after a child, and not only that, yeah, when we're talking about young children, it's really important that the nurses and the nurseries, when the staff are looking after them, they're not managed. That one staff member in particular is not managing 4 or 5 kids at one go, and they're only managing maybe 2, possibly 3 at a time, because children do silly things when they're young at that age, don't they? And it's very important that they're well looked after. And we could end up having a potentially serious situation where at the moment it's normally between 2, sometimes 3, a staff member is watching over, or the one-on-ones, which is even more special, where they could end up, one member of nursery could be managing more than 3 children, and then that becomes a problem for them. And it stretches them, and it can get to them, and it can be very stressful and very tiring. And you don't think about these things, and it's hurting these nurseries as well, because the government are subsidising it, but the nurseries don't benefit, especially nurseries in the private sector. They don't benefit for this. Where's the money for them as well? So, yeah, more nurseries are going to close as a result of this. That's the reality of it. So, and as more nurseries are going to close, where are you going to put your child then? Oh, you've got 3:30 hours. Well, we've got no more space here. We don't have enough staff to manage. And that's what a lot of nurseries are going to end up saying. They're going to cap how many they're going to have to cap how many children that they can take on. They really are going to have to cap it much more significantly. So there's going to be less spaces. So even though you may have that access for your child to have that free nursery, there's not going to be a nursery around, because there's not going to be the money there for these nurseries to look after them. So there's that factor to play into all of this as well. The second linked issue is the underfunding of existing government subsidies-free places. Nurseries unable to recruit staff are already under pressure to pay them more. Exactly, they don't get enough pay as well, and I know from relatives. They cannot afford to take an extra hit and are withdrawing subsidies provisions altogether. However, childcare providers said the cost of living biting many parents are only able to afford funded hours, so will withdraw children from nurseries that don't offer them, eventually forcing closures as numbers drop. It is this destructive process that they will warn will escalate Rishi Sunak's extended free childcare offer is introduced. For those parents who actually pay into these nurseries, if their costs go up, it makes it more sense for them to pull their child out and just do for the free childcare, and it means less money for that nursery. The government says it's investing hundreds of millions of pounds into childcare and offered a new national recruitment campaign, but nurseries said it won't be enough to make the 3 hours make financial sense, and they cannot compete for staff when other less demanding job services pay more. Exactly. Rhonda Williams, manager of Children's House Mussolini Preschool in Berlin, Kent, has already decided she won't offer any subsidised hours because they are underfunded, and because of staff shortages, she fears her nursery will soon be forced to close. I can't recruit, and the staff that I've got I can't hold on to because they want more money, she said. I can't remain financially viable and therefore open. For the first time ever, the government has taken the care out of children. Either I deliver rubbish cheap or close, because I cannot deliver outstanding on peanuts. No matter what we do, it's just not worth it. It's like someone saying it doesn't matter what you're doing, it doesn't matter what impact it is. It's a labour of love, but I have to break even. Nessa predicts the extending 3 hours will trigger additional demands for children in 2 ways. There will be an increase in additional hours among parents already in work from an estimated 60,000 people who will return to work as a result of the scheme, because it theoretically makes work financially viable for many lower income parents. But nurses are warning that they cannot afford to offer the free places, so more parents will leave. Joe Bella, founder and CEO of the campaign group Pregnant Then Screwed, predicts a vicious cycle in which those seek affordability care pull out, leading to closures, and even demand for childcare is rising. The number of nurseries offering any type of free hours care is already declining, with 6% fewer childcare providers often offering the universal 15 hours of care per week over the age of 3, and 4% fewer offering 30 hours to working parents compared with 2022. Yeah. And it's the most deprived areas, particularly outside London and the South East, that are the hardest hit, and the highest percentage of adults are on low incomes and only able to afford childcare under the 3 hours arrangements. Now, obviously, because I live just outside London, the situation for people that I know is different. But obviously, when you're outside of London and the money is much less there from your jobs, it's going to close even more on the outskirts as well, outside of London. So more of those childcares that are relied on, especially outside the capital, they're going to suffer as a result. When you invest in childcare, you are investing in the economy. Childcare and early learning must be affordable, high quality and accessible, and the only way that can be achieved is by investing in those who deliver it. According to Nesta, by 2028 there will be 280,000 one-year-olds and 322 two-year-olds eligible for free 30 hours. That would lead to a number of hours spent in early years education and childcare rising by a third, 33%, for 2-year-olds, with a 46% rise for 1-year-olds. A total of 27,500 earlier professionals would be needed to meet that demand, an 8% expansion of the current workforce, and that of a conservative estimate, Nessa warns. Workforce requirement could be substantially larger, as the perfect allocation for additional staff to hours implied by analysis is unlikely to happen. But staffing for early years is moving in the opposite direction. The sector has lost 3% of its workforce since 2019, and decline continues as young people are attracted into less responsible roles with similar or even higher pay. Staff numbers dropped sharply during the pandemic, when many nurses were closed and have not recovered since. The median average wage for childcare staff is $22,500 to $25,000. They could earn the same money as a shop assistant and even more as a waiter, while teachers' average pay is nearly double. That's ridiculous. How can a shop assistant earn the same money as something like that? That's an absolute bloody joke. Low pay, limited career progress, and perceived lower status makes the attracting and retaining existing staff challenges, said Flora O'Reilly, author of the Nessa report. And Sarah Ron, an acting director of the Urgently Education and Childcare Coalition, which represents both childcare providers and parents of young children using their services, warned that nurseries would not be able to compete on price with Aldi or working in hotels or bars in an attempt to plug the staffing gap. People just cannot afford to pay, she said. They're just not the lowest pay, but their jobs are becoming harder because of relaxing adult-to-child ratios, meaning that they got more children to look after. That's the other thing, the safety of the children. When they have got too many children to look after, there's a risk here as well. They're not babysitters, they're educators. It's one of the most important jobs you can ever have, but they are paid a pittance and treated like glorified babysitters. Yes, they are. That's exactly it. She said they're trying to meet the timeline for expanding free childcare hours has been a reality check for the government. What we've been hearing from providers is that they simply won't be able to offer those hours for 9-month-olds or younger babies or toddlers. It won't just manifest into reality for parents who will still continue to struggle to meet rising fees, and women will drop out of the workforce. Children will drop out early education, and providers will continue to close down. Mrs. Burvey thinks that thousands more nurseries will be forced to close under the scheme, and the closure would mean more parents, most often women, would be forced out of work. Childminders are also at risk. Laura Teskill, a private childminder at Woodshares, is thinking longer and hard about whether to stay in the profession. Within my area specifically, my childminders are leaving in droves, and one of the reasons is due to the new funding coming into place, she said. If parents choose not to pay the voluntary contributions for underfunded hours, our businesses just aren't sustainable. I think you will find next year's funding comes in, more childminders and nurseries will end up closing because it's not sustainable to stay open, leading to less childcare places, meaning more parents can't go back to work, which was the reason for it all anyway. A government spokesperson said this government is rolling out the single biggest investment in childcare in England ever, expanding 33 hours of childcare for working parents and supporting children from 9 months old up when they start school. This will inevitably working parents up on an average of £6,500 per year. To make sure there are enough places across the country, we will be investing hundreds of millions of pounds into hourly funded rates. We're also launching a new national recruitment campaign and looking to introduce a new accelerated apprenticeship route into the sector. To support existing early year staff, we are providing a package of training qualifications and expected guidance worth up to £180 million. This support will help them foster the learning and developing of younger and most disadvantaged children. Yeah, well, they would say that, wouldn't they, guys, to be fair. But yeah, this one really does hit close to me because I know, obviously, one or two people who work in the nursery sector. And it's not fair on them, and they're going to suffer as a result, and the children are going to suffer, which means the parents are going to suffer, which means it's going to be worse off for everybody on this. If you pay them enough, if the nurseries are looked after, this will be alright, but it's not the case, guys. But I've kind of given my point on it, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Right, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. Just for some reason, this is wrong. Why are you wrong? Okay, there we go, I fixed it. Right, so next one, guys, we're going to look at it. This one is from Sky News. This may or may not happen by the time you guys watch this video. So Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson, oh no, it's the wrong story, sorry. Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson have overseen the largest tax rises since the Second World War think tank. I was thinking of a different story article. So this from Sky News, guys. So a senior research economist at the IFS says the pandemic could not be blamed for the rising tax levels and predicted a high tax approach was here to stay regardless of who wins the next general election. So yeah, boomer generations are going to suffer as a result, as if they're already not suffering enough, guys. It's the 13 years of conservative rule, austerity, Brexit are going to lead to these, and yeah, people are going to be paying this back for a long time. And people still think voting Conservative is a good idea. Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson have overseen the largest set of tax rises since the Second World War, according to the economic analysis. The Institute of Physical Studies, the IFS, estimated by the time of the next general election, the tax burden would have risen to around 37% of national income. This equates to roughly $3,500 extra per household, although the increase is not shared evenly. Oh, it's not shared evenly, guys. What a surprise. Records began in 1950 for the figures, and no parliament has seen a larger hike. The headroom for tax cuts has suffered as interest rates rose and the cost of service debt has risen. High inflation has led the government to be cautious of cutting taxes and leaving people with more cash to spend. Treasury Minister Andrew Griffin told Sky News the government still believes in reducing the tax burden, but their priority is bringing down inflation. Asked if we can expect some tax cuts before the next general election, he said, "No, that's absolutely not what I'm saying, and I think any responsible Treasury Minister wouldn't come on your programme this morning and make specific commitments." Labour have also refused to commit to tax cuts if it wins the next general election, blaming the Tories for crashing the economy. Darren Jones, the Shadow Treasury Chief Secretary, said, "If Labour wins the next general election, which I obviously hope they will do, we will inherit the status quo. We're going to have to keep that show on the road while trying to come forward with the big reforms to fix the country and get Britain working again." This is all rhetoric, but no detail from Labour. Of course, we would love to reduce people's taxes in the medium term, but they are the highest they have been for a very long period of time. We're going to have to fix the country first. Again, no detail. Some Tory MPs are putting pressure on Chancellor Jeremy Hunt to reduce taxes in the autumn statement next month. Former Cabinet Minister Dame Priti Patel, speaking ahead of the party's conference in Manchester, said there is a need to separate tax and inflation, telling GB News, "I do recall a rather successful Conservative Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, was able to tackle inflation while growing the economy. However, last week Mr Hunt said it would be virtually impossible to cut taxes at the moment. I really wish it was true, but unfortunately it just isn't," he told LBC. "If you look at what we are having to pay for our long-term debt, it is higher now than it was at the spring budget. I wish it wasn't. It makes life extremely difficult. It makes tax cuts virtually impossible, and meaning that I will have another set of frankly very difficult decisions. All I will say is that if we do want these long-term debt costs to come down, we really need to stick to this plan to get inflation down and get interest rates down. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen before the autumn statement on November the 22, alas. So, this is Rishi Sunak's 5 pledges live tracker here, and yeah, it's not exactly done. So the half inflation, it has come down, but he's still well off the target anyway, to be fair. Grow the economy. No growth, guys. Reducing the debt. Has the debt been reduced? Look at this. Have they really reduced the debt? No. Cutting NHS waiting times. No. And stopping the boats. Compared to other years, I'd say no again. So it don't look like he's making a difference there. Some Tory MPs are eyeing up cuts to sizable projects like HS2 as a way to free up cash, and others are calling for a relaxation of the inheritance tax. Yeah, the inheritance tax is just a waste, guys, just a waste. The economy is an area that Mr. Sunak wants to make its strength, with 3 of its 5 pledges made at the start of this year relating to them. Ben Zarkino, senior research economist at the IFS, said the pandemic could not be blamed for rising tax levels and predicted our high tax approach was here to stay regardless of who wins the next general election. It is conceivable that in this parliament will turn out to be anything other than a tax rising one, and will look now on to be the biggest tax rising parliament since at least the Second World War, he said. This is not, for the most part, a direct consequence of the pandemic. Rather, it reflects the decision to increase government spending, driven partly by demographic change, pressures on the health service, and some unwinding of austerity. It is likely that this Parliament will make a decisive and permanent shift to a higher tax economy. This was echoed by Mark Franks, the Director of Welfare at the Nuffield Foundation. He said there will be a strong pressure in coming parliaments to raise taxes further to meet growing demand for public services such as healthcare. Future governments must not only have a credible and robust strategy for the economy and the public finances, but should also be forthright and transparent about the difficult trade-offs they will face. It's one thing for them to say this, it's another thing yet to actually do them. And if Labour are open and honest about this, they will have a lot more support in government, because people are still very questionable about them, and rightly so. A Treasury spokesperson said despite needing to take difficult decisions to restore public finances in the face of the dual shock of the pandemic and Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine, the latest data shows our tax burden will remain lower than any other major European economy. Don't want to hear this lower than any other European economy thing. Driving down inflation is the most effective tax cut that we can deliver right now, which is why we're sticking to our plan to halve it rather than making it worse by borrowing money to fund tax cuts. We've also taken 3 million people out of paying tax altogether since 2010 through raising personal thresholds, and the Chancellor said he wants to lower the tax burden further, but has been cleared that that sound money must come first. The way sound money comes first is starting from the top, not from the bottom. And what I mean is that taxing from the rich. Now, obviously, I'm not an economist, and my knowledge when it comes to economy is pretty pants, shall we say, to say the least, guys. We are going to end up paying taxes. There's no doubt about it. But it should be the high, those who are on the upper thresholds, who are earning the most, those who are the wealthiest, they should be the ones be forking out a lot of the damage, because they have the money and able to do that. And we need to protect the middle and lower incomes from these tax rises as much as we possibly can, because people are already struggling to make ends meet. They're already struggling to make a living, and making it worse for the medium and especially the lower income is not a very good idea. So yes, we are going to end up having some kind of taxes over the next couple of years, but it needs to be more on the higher echelons of people, more of the upper class that need to pay for this, and need to stop protecting them and start protecting people in the middle and lower incomes who are struggling as it is to make ends meet there. So guys, we've got more to cover, obviously. Guys, if you can hit the like button, it would be greatly appreciated, and if you can for me as well, share across social media, that would be greatly appreciated. Let's dive straight into the next one, guys. This one is from the BBC. This one could also be a story that could change by the time you read it, but I'm going to share it with you guys anyway because I think it's one to talk about. It's from the BBC. Rishi Sunak could limit 20-mile-per-hour zones to target driver vote. So, as you guys know, Rishi Sunak, ever since what happened at Uxbridge with the by-election result, which involved ULEZ, Rishi Sunak thinks that he can tap into a new set of voters when it comes to motorists and cars. But he hasn't really... Him saying that when he gets around the country by driving in a helicopter, he doesn't even take the train. So, I don't think he knows motorists as well as he thinks he does, guys. So Rishi Sunak is set to unveil policies aimed at drivers, including possible limits on the power of councils in England to impose 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. The announcement is expected at the Conservative Party conference, which gets underway at the weekend, which is by the time you guys see this. So the announcement could come out by the time you guys see this. The Tories have started setting out their policies ahead of next year's general election, but the supposedly car-friendly policies have angered cycling and walking campaigners. A joint statement by the Chief Executive of Bikeability Trust, British Cycling UK, Living Streets, Ramblers and Sustrans have said, when ministers could be promoting public transport, cycling and walking as cheap, sustainable options in a cost of living and climate crisis, they're entrenching congestion and reliance on driving for short local journeys. The statement added, this is a plan that looks no further than one way of travelling and will make the roads worse for those occasions when people need to drive. However, the reports were welcomed by Conservative MP for South Cambridgeshire, Anthony Bowen. He told the BBC Radio 4 Today programme that there was a trend of wanting to impose restrictions and penalties on motorists that are essentially punctual and not pragmatic, essentially ideological. Excuse me. Mr. Branning said that there was obviously a case for lower traffic speeds in some locations, such as outside schools, but he said in Wales, where speed limits have been reduced from 30 miles an hour to 20 in built-up areas, was punching against motorists. We don't want people getting run over now, do we? Is it really the end of the world, 20 mile an hour speed limits? I don't think so. Especially around kids and school areas and, some areas obviously where you want to protect their nature as well, because fast cars could knock over certain things. It is not the end of the world, this is. I think this is just being blown out by proportion by the government to try and win over a very small minority of motorists. I don't think a vast majority of motorists see this as a massive, I'm definitely going to cast my vote for the Conservatives despite the fact that I can't afford to put food on my table sort of echelons, guys. The expected government announcement, first reported by the Guardian newspaper, also includes proposals to limit the ability of councils in England to use number plate recognition cameras to fine motorists for traffic violations. Other traffic reports, including restricting the number of hours a day that car traffic is banned from bus lanes. A Department for Transport spokeswoman said the reports were speculation. As I said, you guys, the story may be different by the time you watch this. Earlier this month, Wales became the first country in the UK to reduce speed limits from 30 miles an hour to 20 in build-up areas. Welsh Minister said the move would reduce deaths and noise and encourage people to walk or cycle, but has provoked a backlash from some drivers. Simon Williams from motoring organisations of the RNC saying, while we support the use of 20 mile an hour speed limits being used where they are needed most, such as outside schools or residential streets in urban areas where there's lots of pedestrians, implementing them in a widespread fashion may unnecessarily lengthen journey times by slowing down traffic and possibly even increase congestion. I'm glad they welcome it in school residential areas and urban areas. I think that's the right thing. But I'm not a motorist, to be clear, guys. So I understand that, but I just think I just feel like the Conservatives are using this to pick a fight. Nicholas Lydes from the road safety charity I Am Road Smart said 20 mile an hour zones have a role to play, but the proliferating of blanket limits without physical changes to road layouts mean compliance is often poor. Local authorities are usually best placed to decide the locations of zones, but added there is an argument to strengthen guidance on how it happens. He added, a 2018 study commissioned by the Department of Transport found 20 mile an hour speed limits in residential areas were supported by the majority of residents and drivers. After the Conservatives managed to hold to the seats of Uxbridge and South Ruislip in July's by-election, Mr Sunak sought to present himself on the side of the drivers. You see. The result was widely attributed to public anger over the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone ULEZ charge on the most polluting vehicles to outer London, in which the Tories made central to their campaign. Last week, the Prime Minister announced that he was delaying a ban on new petrol and diesel cars from 2030 to 2025. In July, Mr Sunak ordered a review into low-traffic neighbourhoods in England. The low-traffic neighbourhoods aim was to reduce traffic and encourage people to walk or cycle more, in part by preventing drivers using quieter residential roads. Yeah, I just think this whole thing, as I said, yeah, the position may be different by the time it comes out, guys, but I just think it's more of as a means to try and, I'm just checking this is fine. Excuse me, I just think it's means to just try and trying to tap into a bunch of voters, which I don't think is interested in them, if I'm honest. Just don't think that they are interested in some. There are motorists, obviously, who are concerned about this, and as it said in the article, at the same time, I'm also a motorist and not a motorist. But what I can say is that I don't think people have a problem with 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in certain areas. Perhaps there needs to be more consultation, but what I will say is that if the councils know where these 20-mile-an-hour speed limits should go, and if the vast majority of people in the area support it, then there's no reason why it shouldn't go ahead. And that's how it should be. It should be up to the councils. It should not be something that government should decide, because the government don't know that area except the people who actually live in those areas. So. This next one, guys, is from The Independent. Again, guys, let me know what you guys think on some of the stories in the comments down below, either in the live chat that you're listening to now or in the comments after the video. So this one's from The Independent. Union bosses are demanding emergency HS2 meeting. Economic benefits must not be squandered. Union bosses say huge economic benefits of high-speed rail 2's northern leg must not be squandered because of the ongoing Conservative incompetence. So that headline in and of itself just speaks massive volumes to me, and to say, yes, we must not squander the benefits of high-speed rail 2, especially for those up in the north. So unions are demanding an urgent summit with ministers, mayors and other stakeholders to ensure the northern leg of HS2 goes ahead. After weeks of speculation since The Independent revealed Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are planning to scrap phase 2 of the project, leaders from across the trade union movement are calling for talks to resolve any outstanding issues. The huge economic benefits of HS2's northern leg must not be squandered because of ongoing Conservative incompetence, they said in a joint statement. The head of Transport Union, the TSSA, the RMT and ASLEV, as well as Unite and GB Union, GMB and union bodies, the TUC members, said ministers must urgently convene an emergency summit and find a solution to worries about the cost of the building leg from Birmingham to Manchester. The Independent this month revealed a secret document outlining the cost benefits of ditching the rail projects from Birmingham to Manchester had been drawn up for a face-to-face meeting between Mr Sunak and Mr Hunt. Although $2.3 billion had already been spent on the construction by the second phase, the document suggests $34 billion would be saved by abandoning any future plans. I know that it would cost. There have been reports that it's going to still cost up to 70 to 100 billion pounds, which is a huge amount of money. I get that, but infrastructure is so important. You can't be sitting on what we have. Yeah, in order for an economy to grow and prosper, you have to continue to build on the infrastructure that we have. And given so much investment has already been put in the project, scrapping it now will not help anyone. And to reduce it to as low as they want to is ridiculous. But I do think they need to have reviews about it. I definitely believe that. But you need to find out where all this money is going. After this publication reported the plans condemned Project Redwood, Mr Sunak faced a furious backlash with Boris Johnson and George Osborne among the senior Tories warned the PM must not mutilate the project. 5 Labour mayors have also joined forces in a bid to derail Mr Sunak's plans to scrap the northern leg. And Andy Street, the Tory mayor of the West Midlands, saying axing the northern leg would make it the most expensive white elephant in UK history. It would be a massive white elephant if they scrapped it. After Mr Sunak refused 12 times on Thursday to answer whether HS2's northern leg will be scrapped, the union said they were deeply concerned. Remember, guys, by the time you hear this, the position may have changed as well. In a joint statement, the union said delivering the northern leg of HS2 could create over 17,000 construction jobs in the northwest alone, not to mention the vital orders to steelmakers at sites including Scupthorpe that provide rail for the project, and it has the potential to double the economic output of Greater Manchester by 2050. These are all long-term benefits to everybody, these projects. Yes, of course it costs taxpayers money, but it benefits the economy investing in this. These huge benefits must not be squandered because of government incompetence. Workers and businesses want a government committed to a proper industrial strategy. But the Tories' consistent chopping and changing shows complete disregard for the economic development, levelling up in any long-term planning. They said that Britain already trails much behind of Europe in high-speed rail infrastructure and is being left behind. And they said ministers must hold a summit meeting bringing together HS2 key contractors, trade unions and members in a devolved authorities. This is the best way to find a solution that will deliver the benefits for commuters, businesses and the communities in the country, they said. 100%. Get everyone round the table and work it out. The statement was signed by TUC General Secretary Paul Newark, ASLAB's Mike Whelan, GMB Gary Smith, RMT's Mick Lynch and the TSSA's Peter Pendle and Sharon Graham of Unite. Yep, I couldn't agree more. Get everyone around the table and work it out instead of just ignoring everyone and just going to the next thing. It's not going to help anybody, really, to be fair, guys. But as I said, guys, by the time you hear this, they may have already announced that they're scrapping parts of the HS2. Two more stories to cover, guys, before we wrap things up. The next one we have is about asylum seekers. We've heard plenty of stories about the way some of them are being treated. This one is from Open Democracy, guys. It's an exclusive from them. Asylum seekers claim that they are put in isolation for feeling depressed. This is an exclusive from them that three men describe prison-like conditions at the controversial RAF Wethersfield in the wake of a hunger strike. Yeah, this is apparently a room. Apparently. Asylum seekers housed at a controversial prison-like former RAF base claim they had been put in solitary confinement after complaining of depression. The charity Care for Callous is understood to have been made aware of a number of similar allegations. RAF Wethersfield, a remote 800-acre site in Wethersfield, Essex, surrounded by barbed wire fences, is the government's latest answer to housing asylum seekers. In theory, residents can come and go. But Open Democracy has spoken to asylum seekers and advocates who allege some men have been quarantined in their room for 48 hours. Ali, 24, escaped the Taliban earlier this year and now living in the centre. He told Open Democracy, "I complained that I had depression because I was in Wethersfield and they locked me up in a room for 2 days. They've done this to me twice. I presume the names are not real." Staff have now promised him medication, he said, but 6 weeks he has yet to receive it. It's happening to other people too, Ali added. If they go and tell them that they don't feel well or they may have depression, they lock them in a room for 48 hours and make them quarantine. And they're not allowed out. Wethersfield is like a prison. It doesn't feel like we're in any kind of home or hotel room. We've just been thrown into a military-style prison camp. Why? This is exactly what the Home Office, this is exactly what the Home Secretary wants to treat them. Like criminals, like prisoners. They've done nothing wrong. And they're being treated like this, allegedly. This is disgusting if this turns out to be true. And I think, yeah, if this turns out to be true, I hope the people responsible are prosecuted for this. Because this is criminal. Holding them against their will. Wakefield's first occupants are believed to have arrived in the UK after crossing the channels in small boats, and by the end of August it housed close to 100 people. The Home Office says it intends the site to be fully functional this autumn, planned up to houses of up to 1,700 single adult men there. A private company commissioned Primary Care Solution was awarded a £1.1 million contract to provide health assessments and a medical centre at Wethersfield. Open Democracy approached Commissio's for comment about the allegations of solitary confinement, but did not get a response. The Home Office said it does not recognise the allegations that were put to them. Malik arrived in the UK on a small boat on the 19th of August and was placed in Wakefield on the 24th of August. Asked whether he had seen anybody being quarantined for depression, he said, "I'm 100% sure they have done this." Malik said he roomed overseas to quarantine buildings, so he sees people being put in there. He's aware of at least one case of Kurdish man being placed in there for depression, he said. Hunger strikes. The latest allegations follow reports on Monday that a number of men at the RSF Wethersfield has blocked vehicles from accessing the site in protest about their living conditions. As a result of the protests in which the Home Office has downplayed, the Home Office came to speak with them each this week. Everyone shared their own personal problems, but I don't really know if they're going to work on it or not, Malik said. While the Home Office claimed that reports of hunger strikes were untrue, a spokesperson for the Care for Callous told Open Democracy on Wednesday, "Our volunteers have spoken to residents who are on hunger strike at distribution today. Guys said they would feel no hope about their situation, and one was clear that they will not eat until he is moved." I do feel for these people. Ali told Open Democracy that the food was among the worst things in the camp. "Every day it's chicken and potatoes, he said, adding the food smells even though it's gone off and many of the men have suffered sickness. You only offer them one same goddamn meal, allegedly, and it's not even a decent consumption, apparently. And again, this is all allegations, but it's all alleged. But it's just like you're not even looking after their well-being. You're throwing them allegedly in solitary confinement because they have mental health issues. Like, I have to stress this. How many times do we need to stress this? These are not prisoners. These are people who are looking to work and be a part of British society, and you're locking them up just because they wanted to come to the UK. Came across boats because they had no other way, no legal way of claiming asylum in the UK. And they're being treated indifferently. It's disgusting. "I was 64 kilograms and now I'm 58 kilograms, he said, claiming he had visited the doctors with an upset stomach 3 times over the past 6 weeks. "We have to keep getting refills for our medications to deal with our sickness. I don't feel any hope. It's like anything is going to change in my life." Ali added they have nothing to keep with them busy in the day, even though they've asked, such as Wi-Fi, television, laptops, books or English classes. "I have £34 in my account," he says. "No clothes and no money for extra food." Karim, who was originally from Iraq, was also at Monday's protest. The 22-year-old told us, "We are in prison except we are not in prison clothes." He said 2 men fainted from hunger strike and the group had to call an ambulance for them. "I have depression, headaches and heartache," he said, adding nobody in the camp is in good condition. Karim described small, cramped living quarters with up to 3 men sharing bedrooms and bathrooms designed for one person. "Our beds are full of insects." He described how the men felt completely cut off from the world, and there were only 1 bus a day to the city of Colchester, about an hour away, and it returns 2 hours later. If you miss the bus, then you have to sleep on the streets. Steve Smith, CEO of refugee charity Care for Callous, told us that some of its clients have been at Wethersfield for more than 2 months and that his organisation has been raising safeguarding issues with the authorities on an almost daily basis, but was never responded to. "There are genuine concerns amongst our team that there will be a very serious incident at Wethersfield before any meaningful action is taken at the well-being of the people being left isolated in the camp," he said. I hope not. There's not going to be an incident. Wethersfield is an elusive of government plans for asylum accommodation going forward, he added, pointing out to such sites as the RAF Scumpton in Lincolnshire and the Bibby Stockholm barge off the coast of Dorset. These institutional are we in the right place? These institutional sites are not appropriate for long-term accommodation, never mind people who have survived horrors such as war, torture and modern slavery, said Smith. An ongoing case for the Braintree District Council is challenging the Home Office plans to expand the Wethersfield, with a High Court hearing scheduled on 31st of October. The High Court will also hear the evidence about the inappropriate use of RSF-based Scampton in Lincolnshire, which is due to open in weeks and houses of up to 2,000 men. "We do not recognise the allegations being made," the Home Office told us in a statement. Despite the number of people arriving in the UK reaching record levels, we continue to provide accommodation for asylum seekers who would otherwise be destitute to meet our legal obligations. All residents have access to medical support, including mental health support, including the food provided meets NHS Eat Well standards, catering for all cultural and dietary requirements. To suggest otherwise is wrong. As I said, the names have been changed of those people, so they're not actually those names, guys. So the Home Office is flat out denying any of this, by the way, so as they've made it clear there. But obviously, that could change. So, yeah, people being treated indifferently just because, whether it's the colour of their skin or the nationality they come from, and because they cross the channel. Obviously, this is all allegations, but they're very strong allegations there, aren't they? And I don't think Open Democracy would have a story like that if they didn't have people to back it up. That is for sure, guys. So the last story, guys, is from Byline Times. We've covered a number of things from Byline Times over the years, guys. And we've gone back to one that I've covered numerously, and we've even done a long live stream on. Dan Wootton. Yes, I know. But let's dive straight into this headline and story, shall we, guys? Last story of the show. Cancelling the Canceller. How Martin Branning made Dan Wootton a time bomb. The GB News anchor has been suspended from his £600,000 a year primetime show and fired from his £250,000 a year Mail online column. Tells us how his fall was inevitable following Byline Times' special investigation. It's been long overdue. This has been a long time coming for Dan. You know, people have attacked me on Twitter actually because they basically said that Dan Wootton done nothing wrong. Well, Byline Times have been working on this story for a long time, so you're dismissing everything that they have covered. You're dismissing all the people who are saying it. So everyone who's saying that there's something wrong here apparently is all in the wrong, and Dan is in the right. Yeah, just gonna put that out there. Allegedly. Dan Wootton's $250,000 a year Mail online contract has been terminated following his suspension by GB News over Lauren Fox misogyny store, as new details emerge of an investigation into his conduct while writing for the website. The presenter twice weekly Mail online column had already been suspended for the past 56 days, while lawyers for publisher DMG Media looked into allegations in Byline Times' special investigation exposing Wootton as a serial catfisher and sexual predator. Wootton's primetime weekly nightly GB News show Dan Wootton Tonight was taken off air after he laughed along with a sexist rant by political activist Fox, who disparaging remarks about journalist Ava Evans provoked a huge backlash. In a film statement this evening, Fox claimed he provided Wootton with moral support and helped him to set up a crowdfunder following Byline Times' attack on him, which has left the presenter in hot water. Fox said that Wootton distanced himself from his comments about Mrs. Evans after the exchange was aired and therefore disloyal. The former actor believes he's been made a scapegoat and that the duo's suspension shows that GB News, which bills itself as the home of free speech, is now the home of cancel culture. A DMG Media spokesperson said today, following the events this week, DMG Media can confirm that Dan Wootton's freelance column with Mail Online, which has already been paused, has now been terminated along with his contract. The newspaper can reveal details of the internal probe at Mail Online into Wootton's use of the online Fosomolans, Martin Branning and Marina Joseph to obtain sexual images of men by deception, which he has never denied being or being connected to. That foreshadowed his sacking today. So what really went on? A source close to the matter told Byline Times has been clear internally ever since Dan's column was suspended that he would not be returned to the Mail Online, although there were contractual obligations to observe, which meant a due process of investigation had to be undertaken. His moment of madness with Lauren Fox on air gave the pretext DMG had been waiting for. Wootton had not been seen by Derry Street, Barron Street, that's Mail Online's Kensington HQ again. It's part of a wider probe. This newspaper revealed how a top DMG lawyers and editorial decision-making spoke to at least one of the celebrities Wootton targeted with overtures for explicit sexual images. Byline Times reported last month how Wootton pressured former Big Brother star JJ Bird to pose nude for photos, having initially offered him money for underwear shoot for a supposed legitimate brand in a shoot at Wootton's home in London, Stockshire. Mr. Bird said, "He invited me to a test school at his flat with a fee attached. At that time, I was trying to fund my boxing career and develop my career into entertainment. Dan was a big name in the world of showbiz journalism who had the power to do that. Looking back now, it was a complete abuse of his power and position. He should not have been offered to do that kind of thing." Excuse me. At the time of the incident, Wootton was just beginning his career in Mail Online's sister publication, The Daily Mail. In a video call on the 14th of August, Bird gave his detailed accounts of events to Geraldine Elliott, a partner of the leading London law firm RPC, appointed as an external counsel by DMG's head of editorial legal, Liz Hartley. It followed detailed discussions between Wootton and Mail Online bosses in the wake of Byline Times article, in which we first unmasked Wootton as the hidden hand behind Branning and Joseph. External lawyers from other top law firms, Kinsley Napkin, has already been brought in by Wootton's previous employers, News UK, publisher of The Sun, to investigate the revelations that Wootton used to fake identities to sexually harass men, including newsroom colleagues, and try to either trick or bribe them into sharing sexual explicit digital material. Wootton has previously said he has made errors of judgment in the past, but has branded the criminal allegations as simply untrue. His representative previously told The Guardian that Wootton did not at any time contact current or former colleagues in The Sun with offers of money in return for sexually explicit images, and he did not engage in inappropriate behaviour at the workplace. The newspaper understands that Wootton was summoned to a meeting with DMG chiefs and asked for his account of events, that he denied the truth of some elements of Byline Times' investigation and refused to discuss others. There was a sense that Dan could have done more to meet the questions he was being asked, the source said. It gave the company plenty of pause for thought, though. Calling for accountability. We want some accountability if this is all. I have to keep stressing the word allegation because the thing is that he's not been tried in a court of law. That's the thing. So I do have to stress that, even though the evidence is quite strong against him. Wootton's column was officially paused after his newspaper published digital evidence on the 3rd of August showing the email address of Branning and Joseph used and an 8-character password also connected to Wootton's personal website email address. Knocked the microphone there. His official work email address, his LinkedIn and his MySpace account, among others, exposed in an open source data leak. The odds of the account sharing the same password were, in accordance with an Element PhD specialist in mathematical prediction modelling, vanishingly small. By this point, the allegations were too serious to ignore and the evidence was mounting up, the source added. It wasn't an option not to comment. This newspaper further understands that Wootton requested an additional financial support from DMG when we started exposing him on the 17th of July. A second source close to the knowledge of the matter said Dan wanted external help regarding the impact of Byline Times' investigation, which raised eyebrows at the Mail, and at the time he was earning the best part of £1 million a year. That needed for him to enjoy further financial backing was not immediately obvious. He was appearing 4 nights a week as the anchor of the national newspaper channel known in the industry that was paying pretty well. That was hardly going to go unnoticed. It is understood that at some of the actions of Wootton's lawyer, Donald Bailey, a solicitor who appears to specialise in representing individuals aligning to hard-right politics, were also unpopular at Derry Street. Plainly sent out legal letters to third parties on Wootton's behalf, denigrating Mail Online as morally replaceable. You can't say that word. Sorry, guys. Over the alleged leaking of information about his client. As part of his investigation, DMG media lawyers are understood to have spoken to several of Wootton's former colleagues. The investigation and the coincidence of Wootton's on-air troubles at GB News has given DMG Media the impetus to finally sack Wootton in a manner constrict of Wootton's own calls for accountability and other media figures accused of workplace and other wrongdoing. They include most recently Wootton calling out his former ITV colleague Philip Schofield, who quit the channel in May when details emerged of a relationship with a junior colleague, leading Wootton to brand Schofield the most loathsome man on TV. Byline Times asked DMG Media whether the online mail investigation into his newspaper allegation about Wootton was still ongoing, and if not, what it had included. It did not receive a response. I do think it was tied into it. Potentially, but I do. I'm glad he's been. He has been taken off the Daily Mail. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with GB News yet. Yes, he has been suspended as of right now, at the time of this recording, which is Friday. But things could change. He could end up coming back. I've seen one or two people have said that he's far too loyal to GB News, and that is potential possibility. But this story about Byline Times, my concern is what the police are doing with the evidence, because of these allegations and that, because this has all been reported to the police, but the police have not yet responded. So I would say give it a few more months, and perhaps the police may open an investigation potentially into Dan Wootton, possibly. So that is what I think on that, but we will have to wait and see, guys. But what do you guys make of this story? What do you guys make of all the stories that have taken place today? We've gone over the hour mark now. Thank you very much, Jeff, for watching along another episode of Newsround. I hope you found these stories interesting, insightful, and perhaps may have better knowledge you more today than they did yesterday. Every day we're always still learning, guys, and some of them are very hard to take, but at the same time it's important that we highlight these issues if we want to have a better place in the UK, guys. So thank you very much for watching. Like, share and subscribe as always, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.